When you have miles of sandy beaches, tourists are going to come. But Virginia Beach is still trying to figure out how to handle all their visitors. Tonight, there was a heated discussion at City Hall regarding how to regulate short-term rentals like Airbnb. 13 News Now reporter Robert Boyd was there.
Virginia Beach City Council decided to hold off on making a vote regarding the future of short-term rentals in the city, but I can tell you both sides of this issue are very passionate.
As you scroll through Airbnb, you'll find everything from mansions to bedrooms for rent in Virginia Beach, but many residents who live here permanently don't like it.
We did not buy our family homes in this beautiful, safe, peaceful residential neighborhood to have a mini hotel on our street.
Residents say these short-term renters, who sometimes stay for as little as one night, are ruining their neighborhoods with trash, traffic, and loud parties.
And it should be one family, 52 weeks a year, not 52 families for 1 week each.
In order to reduce these concerns, the city is looking at a number of ways to regulate short-term rentals, including restrictions on occupancy, noise control, and parking requirements. But for some, that still isn't good enough.
It is something big, and it could turn our whole city into something that we really, a city of strangers rather than neighbors.
But there is a whole other group of residents who say they depend on short-term rentals.
It's helped me make my ends meet with my financial needs, to take care of my family.
Those in favor of short-term rentals say when you choose to live by the beach, you just have to accept that tourists are part of the deal, and that should be a positive, not a negative.
We hear a lot of stories of where it sounds like rock stars come to Virginia Beach and party like crazy. I'll be honest with you, 99.9% of the people we get here are families. Come here to Virginia Beach to enjoy the atmosphere of the beach.
No date was given as to when this issue will come back before City Council. In Virginia Beach, Robert Boyd, 13 News Now.